"You're going to be a father again," my wife said, and that's when I knew something was wrong. How do you react when your wife tells you you're becoming a father again, but you haven't touched her in months? That question slammed into my chest at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning in our quiet Denver kitchen. Burnt toast smoking behind me, cold coffee in my hand, and Maddie looking at me like she just delivered a miracle. "You're going to be a father again," she whispered. And all I could think, all I could feel was a chilling, quiet rage. Strange, I remember thinking, because I haven't laid a hand on you in months. That was the exact second I knew my life was about to split wide open. If you're still here, you gotta hit follow because this story only gets darker from here. My name's Mark Ellison. I'm 46, a corporate attorney in Denver, the kind of guy who lives in email threads and conference calls so the mortgage gets paid on time. I've been married to Maddie for 16 years. We met young, fell hard, did all the cliches, cheap wine on the floor of a tiny apartment, road trips in a beat-up Honda that rattled over every pothole in Colorado. Our first anniversary was at this little Italian place, La Tavola Rustica, where we split one dessert because that's all we could afford. Somewhere in there life got bigger. Better jobs, a nicer house in the suburbs. And then Sarah came along, my daughter, 12 now. Smart mouth, sharp eyes, the best thing I ever helped bring into this world. She's the main reason I kept trying when everything else started to crack. From the outside it still looked solid. 2 cars in the driveway, Christmas cards with matching sweaters. But inside something shifted. I kept showing up, kept working, kept providing, and yet somehow it never felt like enough for her anymore. At the end of the day, all I ever wanted was a little respect. Here's the thing. Marriages don't just explode out of nowhere. They rot slowly, quietly, while you're busy telling yourself everything's fine. With Maddie it started small. Fewer jokes. Shorter answers. Those long, heavy sighs when I'd walk into the room, like my presence just added weight to the air. Then the phone came between us. She'd sit on the couch, eyes glued to the screen, smiling at something she never bothered to share. I'd say her name once, twice, and she wouldn't even hear me. But that phone? It got her full attention. There was a new perfume too. Not the one I bought her years ago at Christmas. Something sharper, more expensive. It clung to her when she came home late from the new gym across town. 3 nights a week, suddenly committed to taking care of herself. In bed it turned into, "I'm tired. I got a headache. Let's just sleep, okay?" Night after night, I kept telling myself, don't be that jealous husband. Don't overthink it. You're just stressed. But deep down, my gut was screaming something was wrong. After that, things didn't get better. They just got organized. One afternoon, Maddie mentioned it like it was nothing. She joined a new place, Redline Fitness and Performance. "They've got great classes," she said. "I'm finally going to get my body back." Overnight, our evenings changed. 3 nights a week she was at the gym. 6:30 p.m. It was just me and Sarah at the table. 2 plates. 1 chair sitting empty like a reminder. I'd ask, "You want to wait for Mom?" And Sarah would shrug and poke at her food. Eventually we stopped asking. Maddie started coming home later and later. Ponytail, messy, leggings, tank top, that sharp new perfume mixed with sweat. "I'm exhausted," she'd say, brushing past me. "I just want a shower and bed, okay?" No kiss. No real eye contact. I could feel something inside me shrinking every time she walked by, like I was a piece of furniture she'd outgrown. I kept paying the bills, fixing the little things around the house, pretending not to notice the way she'd smile at her phone, not at me. I didn't say it out loud back then, but the thought was there. Am I still her husband or just her wallet? I started to feel like a stranger in my own home. That's why when that Tuesday morning hit, it didn't feel like a blessing. It felt like a trap snapping shut. We're back in that Denver kitchen. Burnt toast in the trash. Coffee going cold on the counter. My head still foggy from another night of sleeping next to someone I hadn't really touched in months. Maddie walked in, holding this little white stick like it was a golden ticket. Her eyes were shining in a way they hadn't for me in a long time. "We're going to have a baby," she said. "You're going to be a father again." My face did what it's supposed to do. I nodded. I forced a smile. Inside my stomach dropped. So, I asked the only question that mattered. "How late are you? How long do you think it's been?" She frowned, thought for a second. "I don't know, 6, maybe 7 weeks?" And that's when the math started doing itself in my head. 6 to 7 weeks. Her gym nights. That stretch where she slept in the guest room after our big fight in May. The quiet months that followed. 6 to 7 weeks. And we hadn't been intimate in months. The math didn't just not work. It felt like a punch in the gut from someone standing right in front of me, calling it a miracle. Right there in that kitchen, I had a choice. I could flip the table, scream, demand answers. Make a scene worthy of every cheap drama on TV. And trust me, for a second I wanted to. I wanted to ask her whose baby she was carrying. I wanted to watch that smile slide off her face. But then Sarah's face flashed in my mind. Her bedroom down the hall. Her school. Her house. 16 years of shared bills, shared holidays, shared history. You don't just torch all of that because your heart is on fire. Not if you've lived long enough to know what real damage looks like. So I swallowed it. All of it. The anger, the humiliation, the urge to shout. I hugged her. I told her we'd figure it out. I even asked about baby names. On the outside, I played the excited husband. On the inside, something very cold and very clear snapped into place. You don't burn your life down over emotions. I needed facts, not feelings. That morning, I switched into survival mode. And a man in survival mode starts with what he knows best. For me, that was work. So, I did what I always do when things get complicated. I went to the office, downtown Denver, glass building, the same lobby I'd walked through 1,000 times. Only this time, I wasn't thinking about contracts or board meetings. I was thinking about a plus sign on a plastic stick and a timeline that didn't add up. I closed my office door, let the emails pile up, and pulled out my laptop. No shouting, no drama, just numbers. We'd had a family phone plan for years. I'm the one who set it up. I pay the bill. Maddie knows that. But people get sloppy when they think you're not paying attention. I logged into the account and pulled 6 months of call history. Rows and rows of timestamps and 10-digit numbers. And then I saw it. One number. Over and over. Daytime calls, early evenings, times when I was either at the office or in a meeting. The more I scrolled, the more that string of digits stopped looking random. That number started to look like a name. The pattern jumped out immediately. Calls were bad enough. The texts were worse. I clicked over to the message log, filtered by that same number. There it was. Hundreds of messages. April a few here and there. May more. June damn near all day, every day. Little gray bars stacked on top of each other like bricks in a wall being built right in front of me. A whole secret life lived out in my phone bill. I couldn't see the content, just the timestamps. But honestly, I didn't need the words. The volume said everything. You don't text your friend 300 times a month while your husband is at work and then come home and tell him you're just tired. Sitting there in my office chair, I felt it hit me. That special kind of humiliation men don't like to admit to. Being played. Turned into the idiot in someone else's story. Then I noticed something else. About 3 weeks back, the messages dropped off a cliff. Almost nothing since. So which was it? Did he disappear or did they find a smarter way to hide? Either way, one thing was clear. This wasn't random. This was a full-blown affair. Once you see one crack, you start seeing them everywhere. Phone records were one thing. Money is another. Money doesn't lie. I pulled up our joint credit card statement next. Same 6 months. Same quiet rage in my chest. There were charges at restaurants I'd never heard of. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, tip added. All on nights I was working late or out of town. Funny, I don't remember tasting any of that. Then I saw it. A hotel in downtown Denver. One night, the same weekend I was in Seattle for a conference. She told me she was staying with her sister. Sure she was. Scrolling further, I hit a line that made my jaw clench. Over $2,000 at a boutique lingerie store I'd never seen on a receipt before. I knew what was in Maddie's drawer at home. Practical cotton stuff we'd stopped talking about years ago. So, where was the new stuff being worn? Because it sure as hell wasn't in our bedroom. Every transaction felt like a slap in the face. A dinner here. A bottle of wine there. A hotel room. This wasn't a mistake. It was systematic deception. When the dust settled in my head, there was only one person I trusted to be brutally honest with me. Michael Rosen, law school buddy, now a family law attorney. The guy who spends his days watching marriages die on paper. I called him from my office. Kept my voice level. Got a hypothetical for you, I said. We met at some coffee shop miles away from my house and his firm. Neutral ground. No chance of running into anyone we knew. I laid it out piece by piece like I was talking about a client. Pregnant wife. Timeline that didn't add up. Phone records. Credit card charges. My gut screaming. He didn't interrupt. Just stirred his coffee, jaw tight. When I finished, he sighed. Hypothetically, your friend needs to document everything, he said. Phone logs, bank statements, screenshots. Quietly. And he needs to act normal. No fights, no accusations, no tipping her off. He looked me dead in the eye. Because the same woman who promised to love you will empty your accounts if she feels threatened. Don't give her a reason to lawyer up first. That was the moment this stopped being just heartbreak and became strategy. Driving home that night, Michael's words kept looping in my head. Document everything. Act normal. Don't tip her off. So, I walked through my own front door like nothing had changed. No cold shoulder. No distance. Instead, I wrapped my arms around Maddie, kissed her cheek, and asked how she was feeling. She looked surprised, disarmed, like she'd braced for suspicion and got tenderness instead. Hey, I said softly. What do you think about going to La Tavola Rustica this weekend? Celebrate the baby. Just us. Her eyes actually lit up. Really? You want to? Yeah, I said. We should mark the moment, right? She slipped her arm through mine, leaned her head on my shoulder in the kitchen, like we were some Hallmark couple. For a second it almost felt real. Almost. Inside though I was ice cold. Let her relax. Let her feel safe. Let her think I'd bought the story. Every last piece of it. Because if she was going to lie, I was going to let her lie big. I needed her comfortable. Comfortable people get careless. La Tavola Rustica hadn't changed much. Same dim lights, brick walls, candles stuck in old wine bottles. The last time Maddie and I were here, we were broke and in love. This time we weren't either of those things. She showed up in a blue dress I hadn't seen in years. Hair done, makeup perfect. She looked happy, or at least like someone playing that part. We ordered wine for me, sparkling water for her. She smiled across the table, hand on her stomach. Feels like a new beginning, doesn't it? She said. I raised my glass. To new beginnings, I answered. In my head it was to the end. She talked fast like she'd been rehearsing. Nursery colors. Baby names. A family trip before the baby comes. How this little surprise was exactly what we needed. I sat there nodding, listening to a woman who had betrayed me use our money and my future to build a life around another man's child. From the outside we probably looked like a couple rebuilding. In reality only one of us knew the truth. We really were starting over, just not the way she thought. After that dinner the performance really kicked in. I started coming home earlier. I cooked more. I googled pregnancy symptoms. Bought ginger tea when she complained about nausea. Rubbed her back when she said her joints hurt. I asked about doctor appointments. Offered to drive. To everyone watching, I was the poster boy for supportive husband. Neighbors would see us in the driveway and say things like, Maddie may be emotional, but you're a rock, man. That kid's lucky. I'd smile, say, just doing my best, and try not to choke on the irony. Inside, it felt like I was playing a role in some cheap play with bad writing. Every time I touched her shoulder, every time I said the word baby, there was this quiet voice in the back of my head. You're rehearsing for a life that isn't yours. But my job, at least for now, wasn't to explode. It was to hold it together. To keep the lights on, keep the peace, keep her convinced I believed all of it. I was the most supportive fake father you could imagine. Playing the good husband was one thing. Proving what I knew in my gut was another. I had phone logs and credit card statements, but I needed someone whose whole job was to see what people tried to hide. That's how I ended up sitting across from Olivia Hartman. Late 30s, sharp eyes, no small talk, a private investigator Michael recommended. I slid a folder across the table. Printouts of the strange number, the text patterns, the bank charges, Maddie's new gym schedule. That's everything I have, I said. She flipped through it, nodding slowly. Give me 2 weeks, she said. I'll find him and I'll find out how deep this goes. I won't lie. I hated needing her. Hated that my marriage had turned into something I needed a PI for, but I hated the idea of walking blind even more. You don't go to war without a plan or without intel. So we shook hands. In that moment, it stopped being a bunch of ugly suspicions bouncing around my head. We weren't just chasing rumors. We were building a case. About 10 days later, Olivia sent me a short email. We need to meet today. We picked a quiet diner off some side road, the kind of place where nobody pays attention to anyone. She walked in, sat down, and set a thick envelope on the table between us. His name is Jason Mercer, she said. 32, personal trainer at Redline Fitness. I opened the envelope. There he was in grainy photos. Tall, fit, too young. Walking next to Maddie, hand on the small of her back like he owned the right. Another shot of them at a restaurant I'd paid for, laughing over a meal I'd never tasted. Something in my chest twisted, but my face stayed still. Years in court had taught me how. Olivia went on, calm, clinical. They started seeing each other in June. Multiple meetups, hotels, restaurants. Based on dates in her cycle, the timeline matches your wife's pregnancy almost perfectly. So now the unknown number had a face, a job, an age, and a history with my wife. It wasn't abstract anymore. It was him. Olivia cleared her throat. There's more, she said. I was able to get photos inside a hotel room. They leave very little to the imagination. She slid a second envelope across the table. This one felt heavier even though I knew it wasn't. My hand hovered over it for a second before I finally picked it up. I didn't open it. I just sat there, feeling the weight of it in my palm like a brick. I already knew what was inside. A bed that wasn't ours. His hands where mine used to be. I can promise they'd hold up in court, Olivia said quietly. I don't doubt it, I answered. My voice sounded far away even to me. I slipped the envelope back into the folder. I don't need to torture myself, I told her. I already know enough. Later that night, I put that envelope, still sealed, into the safe in my home office, filed under documents I never wanted but might someday need. There are images that once you see them, never leave you. This was proof for court but not for my brain. As I was closing the folder, Olivia stopped me. One more thing, she said, pulling out a separate set of pages. Your wife's name came up somewhere else. She laid down a photo of Maddie walking out of a downtown office building. Different clothes, different day. Businesslike. Determined. I ran the address, Olivia said. Family law firm. The guy who runs it has a reputation. Aggressive divorce attorney. This was about 4 months ago. I stared at the date stamped on the photo. 4 months before the pregnancy announcement. Before the miracle. So, she hadn't just fallen into someone's arms and gotten careless. She'd gone to a lawyer. She'd at least thought about leaving. I sat back, feeling something colder than jealousy settle in. Did she want freedom or a better payout? Was Jason supposed to be her upgrade, or just the fun on the side while she sharpened the knife? Then she got pregnant, and suddenly instead of walking away, she stayed and wrapped the whole mess in a baby blanket with my name on it. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just cheating. This was strategy. That night, after Sarah went to bed and the house went quiet, I sat in my home office with the door closed and everything Olivia had given me spread out on the desk. Phone records, credit card statements, photos, the note about the divorce attorney. 16 years of my life reduced to paper and pixels. I fed each page through the scanner one by one. Made folders. Labeled files. Encrypted drives. Backed it all up. External hard drive, cloud storage, copies sent to Michael with a short email for when the time comes. On the screen it looked almost clean. Orderly. Logical. Ellison versus Ellison, evidence. Funny thing to see your own name on both sides. I kept thinking if she had just come to me months ago and said, I want out, I would have been angry, sure. But we could have split it down the middle, tried to keep things decent for Sarah. But she didn't choose honesty. She chose deception. She chose to trap me with another man's child and count on me to pay for it. She miscalculated badly. A week or so later, I found myself at Presbyterian Medical Center, walking next to Maddie down a hallway that smelled like sanitizer and fresh paint. First ultrasound. Big moment. She lay back on the table, lifted her shirt, and the tech spread cold gel across her stomach. I stood by her shoulder like every other expectant dad in every other room like that. The screen flickered and there it was. A tiny shape. A fast flicker. About 8 weeks, the doctor said. Heartbeat looks good. Maddie squeezed my hand, tears sliding down her cheeks. Can you believe it? She whispered. I made the right noises, asked about due dates, nodded when they printed out those little black and white photos parents put on refrigerators. Inside though, it felt wrong, like I was trespassing in someone else's life. I wasn't watching our new beginning. I was watching a life that wasn't mine grow inside my wife. And while everyone else in that room heard a miracle, all I heard was a clock ticking down to the day I'd prove it. That night, we did the family moment thing. Maddie insisted we all sit down together. No phones. No TV. Just the three of us at the table, plates of pasta getting cold while she waited for her big line. She cleared her throat, gave me a look and said, Sarah, honey, you're going to be a big sister. Sarah's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She looked at Maddie, then at me, back to her. But you two barely talk, she said. No attitude, just confusion. Maddie snapped fast. Sarah, don't be rude. This is good news. That edge in her voice wasn't about our daughter. It was fear. I stepped in before it turned into a fight. Hey, it's okay, I said. She's just surprised. We've had a rough patch, that's true. But this baby is a blessing. Maybe it's what we need. I heard myself say it and almost laughed. Sarah went quiet, pushing food around her plate. She didn't argue. She didn't smile either. She just gave me this long, steady look. It was the look of someone who knew more than she was saying. Silent but not blind. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't the only one in that house who felt something was wrong. A few nights later, Maddie went out with friends. Same story, different outfit. The door closed, her car pulled away, and the house fell into that strange quiet I was starting to recognize. I was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher when I heard soft footsteps. Sarah walked in, hoodie on, hair a mess. That serious look she gets when something's eating at her. "Dad," she said, leaning against the counter. "Can I ask you something?" "Always," I answered. She hesitated, then just went for it. "Are you actually happy about the baby? Like really?" I could have lied, but she's 12, not stupid. "It's complicated," I said slowly. "But you're my priority. That doesn't change. Ever." She watched me for a long second, eyes searching my face like she was cross-examining me. Then she nodded just once. "Okay," she said. "Whatever you're planning, I'm on your side." It hit harder than anything Maddie had said in months. I felt my throat tighten. I didn't give her details. Didn't dump adult garbage on her shoulders. I just put a hand on hers and said, "Thank you. That means more than you know." For the first time since this whole thing started, I knew I wasn't standing in this mess alone. By December, Denver was covered in snow, and our house looked like a postcard. Lights on the roof, wreath on the door, tree in the living room loaded with ornaments we'd collected over 16 years. From the outside, we were the picture of a perfect American family. Pregnant wife, stable husband, smart, quiet daughter. If you drove by, you'd probably think those people have it figured out. Inside, it felt like a stage set. We threw a little holiday get-together. Maddie floated around the room in a sweater dress, one hand always on her belly, telling everyone about our miracle baby. She laughed, talked about nursery colors and due dates, soaked in every "you two must be so happy" like it was oxygen. I stood there with a drink in my hand, smiling on cue, making small talk with guys from the neighborhood about football and interest rates while my stomach twisted. Every time someone said, "Congrats, man," I heard, "You have no idea, do you?" I remember looking around that living room, fireplace on, stockings hung, people talking over Christmas music, and thinking the house had never looked more festive or more hollow. A week or two after that, Maddie brought up the nursery again. "I've been looking at ideas," she said. "Maybe we should hire someone to paint." "I'll do it," I heard myself say. "Let me paint the nursery." So one Saturday I moved the guest bed out, laid down plastic, and opened a can of soft blue paint. The kind you see in magazines under headlines like, "Calm spaces for your new arrival." Stroke after stroke, the beige walls disappeared. I put together the crib, cursed at the instructions like every dad does, hung the little white curtains she'd picked out. If anyone had walked in, they would have seen a father preparing for his son. What I saw was something else. Exhibit A. Every brush stroke said, "He tried. He accepted it. He showed up." It was proof that I acted in good faith, even when my gut knew better. Maddie stood in the doorway taking pictures on her phone. "Can't wait to meet our little boy," she posted later. I looked at that finished room and thought, a boy that isn't mine. I was building a room for a child I planned to legally reject. A few nights after I finished the nursery, I came home to a quiet house. Too quiet. No TV, no music, no Sarah. I found Maddie sitting on the floor of the baby's room, back against the wall, knees pulled up, mascara smudged. The mobile above the crib turned slowly in the dim light. When she looked up at me, her face crumpled. "I'm a terrible person," she whispered. For a second, my heart actually kicked. This could have been it. The moment. I sat down across from her, kept my voice soft. "What makes you say that?" She took a shuddering breath. "I haven't been a good wife," she said. "I've been distant. I've been mean. You've been so good lately and I don't deserve it. I want to be better for you. For the baby." That was it. No Jason. No hotel. No truth. Just vague guilt wrapped in pregnancy hormones. I nodded. Put an arm around her. Said the right reassuring things. Inside I felt nothing. Just this cold, flat disappointment. Guilt without honesty is just another performance. Not long after that, Olivia reached out again. Short text, update. "Call me." We got on the phone that afternoon. Her voice was businesslike as always. "Your guy Jason Mercer," she said. "He put in for a transfer. He's in California now. Different branch of the gym." She emailed photos. Him on a beach, tan, grinning, arm around a new woman. Engagement ring front and center. Fresh start. Clean slate. I stared at the screen, jaw tight. He'd walked away from the mess he helped create and left it in my house, in my wife's body, with my name on the birth certificate. Olivia kept going. Paper trail shows he left about 3 weeks after the text dropped off. Lines up. I leaned back in my chair, feeling that quiet, controlled anger settle in. Not the kind that makes you punch walls. The kind that makes you plan. He's going to pay child support, I said. Not because I need the money but because consequences matter. Nobody gets to blow up a family and walk away tan and happy. Not on my watch. At some point, all the anger and suspicion boiled down to one simple truth. I needed proof. Not guesses. Not timelines. Not gut feelings. Hard proof. So one afternoon, door closed in my downtown office. I opened my laptop and typed, "paternity test kit," into the search bar. It felt ridiculous and deadly serious at the same time. I picked a lab with decent reviews, clicked through their clean little website, name, work address, email. I checked the box for expedited processing because I knew I wouldn't sleep once this started. My hands weren't shaking much, just enough to notice on the mouse. I kept telling myself this is not about hurting her. This is about knowing. Knowing if my life was what I thought it was. Knowing if I was signing up to raise another man's child or not. I hovered over the final button for a long second. Then I clicked. Such a small sound, just a soft tap of plastic. But sitting there in that glass tower, it felt like I just signed the death certificate for my marriage. There was no way back after that. The closer we got to the due date, the heavier everything felt. Maddie moved slower, one hand pressed into the small of her back, the other on her belly. She complained about swollen feet, bad sleep, never quite comfortable. One night we were lying in bed, both staring at the ceiling. The room was dark except for the glow from the street lamp outside. "Are you scared?" she asked quietly. "About doing all of this again? The diapers, the nights, the money, all of it?" I didn't have to fake my answer. "Terrified," I said. She took it as normal dad nerves, gave this little half laugh, put her hand on her stomach, then guided my hand on top of hers like we were a united front. She had no idea that what kept me up at night wasn't bottles or college funds. It was a lab kit already on its way. An envelope that would either confirm my worst fear or prove I'd lost my mind. I didn't say any of that. I just lay there counting in my head. 3 more weeks. Just 3. Then we'll stop pretending. It was a little after 2 o'clock in the morning when Maddie shook my shoulder. "Mark," she said, voice tight. "It's time." For a second I just stared at the ceiling like maybe if I didn't move, none of this would be real. Then another contraction hit and she grabbed my arm so hard her nails dug in. The drive to the hospital felt like driving through a dream. Denver streets empty, traffic lights cycling for nobody. Snow pushed up in dirty piles on the sides of the road. Her breathing came in sharp bursts beside me, timing contractions on her phone. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the speedometer, exactly the limit. Not over, not under. It was the only thing I could control. Between her groans and the GPS, one thought kept looping in my head. This might be the last thing we ever do together as a couple. At Presbyterian they met us with a wheelchair. Nurses took her. Doors swung open. Voices got louder. I stood there answering questions, signing forms, wristbands slapped on my arm like I belonged there. All the while, that same sentence just kept echoing. Last thing we do together. Labor rooms are loud in a strange way. Beeping monitors, hurried shoes, someone counting, someone swearing. Maddie crushed my hand with every contraction. Sweat on her forehead, hair plastered back. "Almost there, Maddie. One more," the nurse said. I watched the doctor, watched the monitor, watched the rise and fall of her stomach like I was outside my own body. Then it happened. One last push, one sharp cry, and the room filled with the sound of a newborn screaming his way into the world. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, someone called out. They clamped the cord and handed me the scissors. I cut it, my fingers numb. It felt like snipping a piece of plastic. No lightning bolt, no magic, just a necessary step. A moment later they placed him in my arms. Red, loud, tiny. "Look at that," a nurse smiled. "He looks just like you." "He didn't. Not even close." But I let them say it. I nodded, stared down at this child who had my wristband but not my blood. There I was, holding a baby everyone insisted was mine, and knowing in the deepest part of me that he wasn't. After the chaos of the birth, the floor finally went quiet. Maddie was out cold, a mix of exhaustion and meds. Daniel was in the nursery under soft lights, lined up with a row of other newborns like tiny strangers. I slipped the DNA kit from my jacket pocket and walked down the hall, each step heavier than it should have been. "Mind if I get a few minutes with my son?" I asked the nurse. She smiled, no suspicion at all. "Of course, just press the button if you need anything." A minute later it was just me and him. Daniel lay there, swaddled tight, face red and scrunched, making those little newborn noises. I opened the kit, peeled back the sterile wrapper and took out the swab. My heart was hammering like I was about to commit a crime. 5 seconds. That's all it took. A gentle swipe along the inside of his cheek. 5 seconds that weighed as much as the rest of my life. I sealed the sample, labeled it, slipped it back into my jacket. I looked down at him and whispered, "I'm sorry, kid. None of this is your fault." There was no going back now. I mailed the kit that morning on my way home to shower, paid extra for rush processing, then went straight back to the hospital to keep playing my part. I held Daniel for photos, texted our families, answered congratulations like any other new dad. Maddie's parents came by with flowers. My folks drove in from 2 states over. Everyone saw what they wanted to see. Inside, I was just waiting. The next day, I sat alone in the hospital cafeteria with a cup of coffee that had gone cold half an hour earlier. I wasn't tasting anything anyway. My phone buzzed on the table. Email notification. Subject line, test results available. I didn't open it. Not right away. I just stared at those 3 words, feeling my pulse in my throat. My thumb hovered over the screen, backed off, hovered again. Because once I tapped that message, there'd be no more pretending I didn't know. No more maybe. No more rough patch, story I could sell myself. It was going to be math. A percentage. Yes or no. After a long minute, I took a breath, unlocked the phone, and tapped the email. The email opened, and there it was, in black and white. Probability of paternity, 0%. I read it once, twice, a third time just to make sure I wasn't missing some tiny asterisk or disclaimer that said, "Just kidding." There wasn't one. You'd think I'd lose it right there. Throw the chair. Punch a wall. Break down in the middle of the hospital cafeteria. But I didn't. What I felt instead was quiet. A strange, heavy kind of peace. I hadn't been crazy. I hadn't been paranoid. My gut had been right the whole time. Not my child. I forwarded the results to Michael. Then to my backup email. Then to the encrypted cloud folder with everything else. 3 different digital vaults holding the moment my marriage officially ended. I stood up, tossed the cold coffee in the trash, and looked toward the elevators that would take me back to Maddie's room. "Now we're done," I said under my breath. Whatever came next wasn't about guessing or wondering anymore. The numbers had spoken. When I walked back into the room, Maddie was propped up in bed, hair a mess, hospital gown loose around her shoulders. Daniel was in her arms, sleeping. Her mother sat in the corner chair, scrolling through her phone. "There you are," her mom said. "We were wondering where you went." "I need to talk to Maddie alone," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. Her mother frowned but stood. "I'll go grab some coffee," she muttered, slipping out and closing the door behind her. I dragged the chair closer to the bed and sat down. "I've got something to show you," I said, pulling out my phone. Maddie's smile faltered. "What is it? Are you okay?" I opened the email and turned the screen toward her. She read the first line, stopped. The color drained from her face. Probability of paternity, 0%. This has to be wrong," she stammered. "These tests aren't always accurate, right? They mess up." It's not wrong," I said quietly. "They ran it twice. For the first time in a long time, there were no more stories she could tell that would cover what we both knew." Maddie kept staring at the screen like if she looked long enough the numbers would change. Then her eyes snapped up to mine, wet and wild. "You're doing this because you want to hurt me," she said. "You're angry. You're trying to punish me." I shook my head. My voice stayed steady. "No, Maddie. I did this because we haven't been intimate in months." "Stop." She opened her mouth, ready with another lie, another twist. That's when I decided I was done dancing around it. "I know about the calls," I said. "The text. The hotel. Redline Fitness." Her lips parted, but nothing came out. "And I know about Jason Mercer." It was like I'd slapped her. Her fingers tightened around the baby. "How do you?" she whispered, then the rest of the sentence died in her throat. I looked at Daniel, then back at her. "This baby belongs to you and Jason Mercer," I said quietly. "Not me." In that moment, every lie she told, every story, every deflection, every tear collapsed. There was nothing left for her to hide behind. She broke. Then the anger fell apart and turned into begging. "Mark, please," she cried. "We have a son. You can't just leave. We're a family." I felt something harden inside me. "No," I said. "We have a daughter. That's it." She shook her head, tears running down her face. "You can't do this. Not now. Not after I just gave birth. You're abandoning me. You're abandoning him." I almost laughed at the word, abandoning. "I'm not abandoning anyone," I said. "I'm refusing to live a lie you created. There's a difference." I took a breath. This was the part I'd practiced in my head 100 times. The divorce papers are already filed, Maddie. You'll be served tomorrow. She stared at me like I'd just spoken another language. You're divorcing me here? Now. You destroyed this marriage long before this hospital room, I answered. You just finally ran out of ways to hide it. There it was. No threats. No theatrics. Just the end stated plainly. Whatever version of us existed before that conversation died in that bed. There wasn't anything left to say after that. Maddie kept crying, firing off questions I wasn't going to answer. I stood up, looked at her one last time, hair tangled, hospital gown, baby in her arms. I hope you become the mother Daniel needs, I said. Without me. Her face crumpled again, but I'd already turned toward the door. When I stepped out into the hallway, her mom was just coming back with a cardboard cup of hospital coffee. She opened her mouth like she was about to ask something, but I just walked past. Whatever story Maddie told her, that was her problem now. The elevator ride down felt longer than it was. Lobby. Sliding doors. The slap of cold Denver air. It was one of those sharp days where the wind cuts through your coat and wakes you up whether you like it or not. Out in the parking lot, my car was already running. Sarah was in the passenger seat with a small suitcase at her feet. She'd packed. She was ready. She looked at me, eyes steady. Is it done? It's done, I said. She nodded once. Let's go home. And for the first time, home didn't mean that house anymore. It meant wherever she and I ended up together. Fast forward 3 months. Divorce court. Beige walls, bad lighting, a judge who'd seen this kind of wreckage 1,000 times. Papers were signed. Orders were read. The marriage of Mark and Maddie Ellison officially pronounced dead. Maddie moved in with her parents. After 12 years out of the workforce, she had to figure out how to make her own money again. From what I heard, it wasn't going smoothly. Jason didn't get to skate either. Michael pushed the paternity angle, and a separate test confirmed what we already knew. The court ordered him to pay child support. He tried to fight it. He lost. Around town, the story that spread wasn't mine. To some people, I was the guy who walked out on his wife right after she gave birth. The cold husband. The villain. I let them talk. People believe whatever story makes them comfortable. I had the truth. I had the documents, the tests, the timelines. More than that, I had my self-respect. You don't control what they call you. You only control whether you can look in the mirror and not feel like a fraud. I'd rather be the villain in their version than the fool in my own. After everything shook out, I sold the old house. Too many ghosts in those walls. Too many lies soaked into the drywall. Sarah and I moved into a smaller place closer to her school. 2 bedrooms. 1.5 baths. Nothing fancy, just enough. We built a new routine from scratch. I cooked more. Nothing special, just pasta, chicken, tacos on Tuesdays. We'd eat at the table, not in front of a TV, and actually talk. After dinner, sometimes we'd watch a show together. Sometimes she'd do homework at the kitchen counter while I answered emails. I started noticing things I'd missed for years. The way she snorted when something really made her laugh. How fast her brain worked when she explained some project I barely understood. Her grades climbed. The tightness in her shoulders eased. The house was quiet, but it wasn't that heavy, tense quiet from before. It was soft, peaceful. One night, I caught myself just sitting on the couch, listening to nothing, and realizing I finally wasn't waiting for a fight, a slammed door, or a lie. Smaller life, better life. For the first time in years, our home felt honest. The day the divorce was officially finalized, the papers stamped and filed, I picked Sarah up from school and just started driving. "Where are we going?" she asked. "You'll see," I said. We ended up back at La Tavola Rustica, the same Italian place where Maddie and I had once celebrated that new beginning that turned out to be the start of the end. The hostess sat us, me and my daughter, at the exact same table. It felt fitting. We ordered what we actually liked this time. No pretending. No watching someone else's mood. Just good food and the kind of silence that doesn't need fixing. When the drinks came, sparkling water for her, a glass of red for me, I lifted mine. "To new beginnings," I said. Sarah smirked, raised her glass and tapped mine. "To truth," she said. "And to not letting people treat us like idiots." I laughed. Really laughed. The kind that comes from somewhere clean, not bitter. In that moment it hit me. All the wreckage, all the pain, and we were still here, still standing. And this time, when we walked out of that restaurant, the new beginning was real. If you've made it this far, you already know one thing. Being betrayed hurts a lot. But I'll tell you what's worse than being cheated on. Slowly giving up your self-respect just to keep the picture of a family intact. Leaving wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. It wasn't heroic. It was ugly, expensive, and it broke things I wish had stayed whole. But walking away from a lie is not cowardice. Sometimes it's the bravest thing a man can do. I didn't do all of this just for me. I did it so my daughter could see what it looks like when someone says, enough, and means it. So she grows up knowing love without respect isn't love worth keeping. You can survive betrayal. What you can't survive, at least not without losing yourself, is lying to yourself forever. If you're listening to this and something in your gut has been screaming for a while, don't smother it just because you're scared of what the truth might cost you. The truth might destroy your old life, but it's the only way you ever get to build a real one. And if this hit home, stick around. You're not the only one trying to crawl out of a lie.